The Minneapolis Police Department has been criticized many times for alleged racial bias and misconduct by its officers. It was investigated by the Justice Department in 2015, the year that Loretta Lynch became President Obama's Attorney General. Now, during her term, she investigated other police-related deaths, including Eric Garner here in New York and Freddie Gray in Baltimore. Loretta Lynch joins us now from New York City. It's very good to see you, Madam Attorney General. I want to start with this. I want to know, what did you think? What did you think when you saw the tape of the death of George Floyd right before our eyes? And what did you see when you looked at Officer Chauvin? To me, those are two different questions.
Well, certainly the first thing I thought when I saw it was that this was an abject failure of police culture. This was a uniformed law enforcement officer acting with an attitude of not just nonchalance, but impunity, and snuffing out the life of an American citizen, not only in broad daylight, but in front of other Americans, seemingly protected by other officers. That was the first thing that I saw. When I thought about it, when I could get over the heartbreak of seeing it and focus on it, it was to think that this was ultimately a picture of not just one officer going off the deep end, but also a failure of culture, a failure of accountability. And I think that that is what everyone else has seen as well. That attitude of not just impunity, but nonchalance. This is the straw that has broken America's back when they consider this case out of all the other examples of police misconduct that we've seen.
I think for a lot of people, just seeing the officer with his hands in his pocket, which just says the ultimate of I'm very comfortable here. Let's talk about the other three officers that were on the scene. None of them intervened to say that's enough, please stop. Do you think, or are you surprised that the three others have not been charged at this time?
Well, I'm not surprised that they were all terminated. I do think that those officers showed an abject failure to manage the situation, to recognize that one of their own had turned against the code that they all swore to uphold and was actually harming someone in front of their very eyes. I do think that those charges are going to be under consideration. My understanding is now the state attorney general is involved as well. So I know they're going to look at everything. I would not be surprised to see charges against those officers also. This really also deals with the issue that we hear so many times about whether or not this is a systemic problem or just the actions of a few bad officers. It's clearly more than just that, because if you have a few bad officers, you have to ask yourself the question of who hired them, who trained them, who promoted them, and not only that, who's protecting them. Here, in the video of Mr. Floyd losing his life, we saw an officer not just snuffing out a citizen's life, but other officers standing by and preventing the crowd from intervening, listening to the crowd reacting, telling the crowd to get back, essentially saying, your voice doesn't matter here. And that's what people heard and saw. That's what they're reacting to.
What can you tell us about police culture and what needs to change? I know you've done a lot of work in that area.
Yes, and the added tragedy to all of this, Gail, is that we know what to do. We have seen police departments turn things around. We have seen police departments become better, become accountable to the community, become partners to the community. We've seen them do the hard work that this requires, and it is hard work. The first thing it requires, Gail, is the courage to face this issue, that this is a problem, that so many citizens in this country, mostly minority, but not limited to the Black community at this point in time, have lost faith in law enforcement. And when that happens, when people feel that there's no one for them to turn to, no one there to protect them, those people are already living in a desert of anarchy. And it's law enforcement's responsibility to reach out and bridge that divide. It takes courage to face the fact that history has gotten us to this point, that years and generations of police actions have tainted law enforcement to the point where this is the image of policing in America. You know, even the good officers now are
optimistic at this point
by this officer and what he did. You know, I'm realistic.
Are you optimistic at this point that things could change?
I'm realistic because, and somewhat optimistic, only because I've seen it change. I've seen police departments turn around. I've seen them sit down with the community and have those hard discussions about the pain that they have caused. I've seen them listen to what the community has to say, and I've seen them literally turn things around and become better and stronger for it. But it requires a strength of will. It requires a commitment to continue those actions long after the smoke has died down from this weekend and long after people have gone back to their homes exhausted from this most recent round of misconduct and protest and everything that goes with it. It requires hard work. And it also requires, Gail, it also requires law enforcement speaking out and taking responsibility for this, which we are now seeing, and I'm glad to see that.
Yeah, I'm not looking for a comparison here between President Obama and President Trump. They are two different leaders. But I'm wondering your thoughts about what you're seeing about how he is handling this situation, briefly, if you could.
Well, look, I think that what we look for in our leaders and what we hope for in our leaders, particularly our president, is to be heard. We want them to hear us. We want them to hear our pain. We want them to lead the entire country. We want them to look at us, even if our experience is not their experience. We want to see empathy and an ability to connect and an ability to say, even if I'm not experiencing what you're experiencing, I do see the pain that this is causing, and we as a country will come together and work to heal. That's what we look to see.
All right.
And I leave it to people to decide where
All
that
right.
message is coming from at this point in time.
All right, Loretta Lynch, thank you very much for your time this morning.